In the heart of Europe, a man was hunted not for his crimes, but for what they believed he became under the light of the full moon. This is the legend of the last werewolf. Imagine being feared by everyone you knew, hunted like an animal, not because of what you did, but because of what they thought you were. A beast in human form, a monster lurking beneath the skin. Think about it. What if your neighbors turned against you? What if they saw you as something unnatural, something evil? But who was this man? And why did they believe he was cursed? Was he truly a creature of the night, or merely a victim of superstition and fear? These questions have lingered for centuries, passed down through generations like ghost stories told around a campfire. But this isn't just another werewolf tale. This is a dark chapter of history, a story of hysteria, persecution, and a man whose name became a legend. For centuries, Europe was haunted by the fear of werewolves. But this wasn't just folklore. People were tried, tortured, and executed all because they were believed to transform under the full moon. It wasn't enough to whisper suspicions. Entire communities would rise up, armed with pitchforks and torches, ready to hunt down the so-called beast. Our story begins in a remote village. Picture this: a small, isolated village surrounded by dense forests. The air is thick with paranoia. Livestock are found slaughtered, their bodies torn apart. Shadows move in the darkness. Whispers spread faster than wildfire. There's a beast that walks among them. Someone has to be blamed. One man stood out. He lived on the outskirts of town, away from the others. Maybe he liked solitude. Maybe he didn't fit in. Whatever the reason, the villagers noticed him. They said his eyes glowed under the moonlight, that he roamed the woods at night, howling like a wolf. Fear turned to hatred. Hatred turned to violence. And the hunt began. But here's the thing. Was there any truth to the legend? Or was this man just a victim of fear? Could he have been framed? Was he different or just misunderstood? Let's dig deeper into the mystery. Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind the myth. If you're fascinated by ancient legends and dark mysteries, subscribe to Ancient Chronicles. There's more to this story than meets the eye. Are you ready to learn the truth about the last werewolf of Europe? Let's dive into the darkness and see what lurks beneath. Werewolves. Monsters of the night. Creatures that haunted the nightmares of Europe for centuries. But where did these legends begin? And why did people believe in them so deeply? In medieval Europe, werewolves weren't just stories. They were a death sentence. Accusations of lycanthropy led to trials, torture, and executions. Fear of the supernatural ruled the land. It wasn't just superstition, it was law. In many regions, being accused of becoming a wolf meant being hunted like a beast. No one was safe from suspicion. Why were people so terrified? During times of plague, famine, and war, fear was everywhere. People needed an explanation for the unexplainable, and werewolves became the perfect scapegoats. When crops failed or livestock disappeared, someone had to take the blame. Often, it was the person who seemed most different. Legends of men turning into wolves date back to ancient times. But in medieval Europe, they took on a darker, more sinister form. Werewolves were seen as agents of the devil, cursed by God. Anyone could be accused. The outcast, the stranger, the misunderstood. All it took was a whisper, a rumor, and lives were ruined. The fear was real, and so were the consequences. This fear gave rise to brutal hunts and trials. People were tortured into confessing to impossible crimes, transforming into wolves, eating human flesh, serving dark forces. Confessions born from pain and fear. But how did these legends spread? And who were the people behind them? Were they truly monsters, or just victims of a society gripped by hysteria? One name echoes through history. A man who became the embodiment of this fear. The last werewolf of Europe. But was he truly a beast, or just a man caught in the wrong time? Before we reveal his identity, remember to subscribe to Ancient Chronicles. Dark legends, ancient myths, and historical mysteries await. Don't miss out on the truth behind the stories. Now, let's journey back to a time of shadows and superstition, to a village haunted by fear, and to a man who was hunted like a monster. The man behind the monster, his name has been lost to time, buried under centuries of legend. But his story lives on. The man they called a werewolf. The man they feared more than death itself. He was an outsider, living on the edge of society. Quiet, reclusive, different. And in those days, being different was dangerous. People feared what they didn't understand. Rumors spread quickly. Livestock found slaughtered, children disappearing, shadows moving in the woods. And always the sound of howling under the full moon. The villagers were terrified. They needed someone to blame. And he was the perfect target. They said his eyes glowed in the dark, that he was cursed, that he was no longer human. The accusations grew more outlandish. They claimed he could transform at will, that his body twisted into the shape of a wolf, that he feasted on flesh under the light of the moon. But was there any truth to these stories? Or was he just a victim of fear and superstition? Was he different or simply misunderstood? In a time of chaos and uncertainty, fear ruled over reason. And in their fear, they turned on him. They called him a monster. They hunted him like an animal. They found him hiding in the woods, his body battered, his spirit broken. But did he fight back like a man or like a beast? The legend says he fought with the strength of 10 men. But legends are just stories, and stories are born from fear. Was he truly a werewolf, or just a man caught in the crossfire of hysteria and ignorance? What do you believe? Was he cursed, possessed, or simply a victim of a cruel society? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your theory could unlock the mystery. Don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Chronicles for more tales of darkness, myth, and mystery. This is just the beginning of the story, and the truth is even darker than the legend. Expanding further, why do we love werewolf stories? Let's pause for a moment and think about why werewolves continue to captivate us. Is it the idea of transformation, the duality of humanity and beast? Or is it the thrill of imagining something wild and untamed lurking just beyond the edge of civilization? Throughout history, werewolves have symbolized our deepest fears, losing control, becoming something unrecognizable, being rejected by society. Even today, we see echoes of this in modern horror films and TV shows. The werewolf myth taps into primal instincts, fear of the unknown, fear of change, and fear of ourselves. So, whether you see the last werewolf of Europe as a tragic figure or a terrifying monster, one thing is certain. His story resonates because it reflects universal truths about human nature. It's a reminder that sometimes the real monsters aren't the ones hiding in the woods, they're the ones within us. The hunt begins accused of being a werewolf. He was no longer seen as human. Fear turned to hatred, and hatred turned to violence. The villagers gathered, torches blazing, weapons in hand. They were hunting a monster. But what drove them to this point? What made them believe so strongly that one of their own had become something unnatural? They spoke of glowing eyes in the darkness, of howls that echoed through the night, sounds that sent shivers down their spines. They claimed he could move faster than any man, that his strength was beyond mortal limits. To them, he wasn't just different. He was dangerous. He was a beast. But let's pause for a moment. How did it come to this? How did an ordinary man, a quiet, reclusive figure living on the fringes of society, become the embodiment of their deepest fears? It all began with whispers, small rumors that grew into terrifying tales. Someone mentioned seeing him near the forest late at night. Another swore they heard him howling under the full moon. These fragments of gossip snowballed into something far darker. They said he could transform under the full moon, that his bones would snap and reshape, his skin would stretch and grow fur. They believed his humanity was consumed by the wolf within. And then the attacks began. Livestock found torn apart, claw marks deep in the earth. People vanished without a trace, their screams swallowed by the night. Was this proof of his curse? Or was there another explanation? Could wild animals have been responsible? Wolves were common in those woods, after all. Or perhaps someone was using the legend to cover up darker deeds. A thief stealing livestock, a rival settling old scores, any of these could explain the strange occurrences. Yet, the villagers didn't see logic. All they saw was fear, and fear demanded answers. The mob formed quickly. Armed with pitchforks, axes, and flaming torches, they marched into the woods, their faces hardened with determination. Shadows flickered around them as they closed in on their prey. Their hearts pounded not just from exertion, but from the thrill of the hunt. In their minds, they weren't chasing a man, they were exterminating a monster. Finally, they found him. Cornered, exhausted, and broken, he stood before them, breathing heavily. His clothes were torn, his body battered from days of running. But they didn't see a man. They saw the creature they had created in their minds, the embodiment of everything they feared. And when they looked at him, they felt no pity, only rage. Did he fight back? Was he truly a beast, lashing out in desperation? Or was he just a man defending himself from a mob driven by hysteria? Some say he roared like an animal, his voice echoing through the trees. Others claim he begged for mercy, pleading his innocence until the very end. The stories vary, but one thing is certain: the legend grew stronger with each retelling. Would you have believed in the monster? Would you have joined the hunt, swept up in the fervor of the crowd? Or would you have seen the man behind the myth? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're fascinated by dark legends like this one, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Chronicles. This tale is far from over. The trial and fate after his capture, they dragged him back to the village, bruised and bloodied. But his ordeal was far from over. Now he would face judgment not as a man, but as a monster. The trial was less about justice and more about spectacle. Witnesses took turns recounting their encounters with the beast. One described glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. Another swore they heard howls that chilled them to the bone. Still others claimed to have seen shadows moving unnaturally fast, too quick to be human. Each testimony added fuel to the fire of fear burning in the villagers' hearts. The evidence against him was flimsy at best, circumstantial, built entirely on superstition and hearsay. Claw marks on livestock? Surely that meant a werewolf. Strange noises in the woods? Proof of his nightly prowls. Even the absence of solid evidence didn't matter. To the villagers, his very existence was proof enough. He pleaded his innocence, his voice trembling with desperation. "I am not a monster," he cried. "I am a man." But his words fell on deaf ears. To the crowd, his protests only confirmed their suspicions. After all, wouldn't a beast try to deny its nature? Wouldn't a cursed soul cling to the illusion of humanity? Desperate to prove their case, some villagers resorted to cruel methods. They cut his flesh, searching for fur beneath the surface. They tied him up and waited for the full moon, watching his eyes intently, hoping to catch a glimpse of the glow they'd heard so much about. When nothing happened, they didn't question their assumptions. Instead, they interpreted his silence as guilt, his fear as confirmation of his monstrous nature. The sentence came swiftly and brutally. Some accounts say he was executed, burned alive to rid the world of his supposed curse. Others claim he managed to escape, vanishing into the forest, never to be seen again. Either way, his fate became part of the legend. Stories spread that his spirit still roamed the woods, haunting the village under the light of the full moon. His howl, they said, could be heard echoing through the trees, a reminder that the beast was never truly gone. Was he truly a monster? Or just a man condemned by fear and ignorance? Did he deserve his fate, or was he a victim of superstition and hysteria? Before we delve deeper into the truth behind this chilling tale, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Chronicles. Stories like these are just the beginning. The past is full of darkness, and sometimes it refuses to stay buried. The truth behind the myth, so, was he truly a werewolf, or was there a more rational explanation? Could science and history shed light on the legend of the last werewolf of Europe? Let's separate fact from fiction and explore the possibilities. One theory suggests he may have suffered from hypertrichosis, a rare medical condition that causes excessive hair growth across the body. In a superstitious age, such a condition could easily be mistaken for a man transforming into a beast. Imagine the shock of seeing someone covered in thick hair. It's not hard to see why people might leap to conclusions. Others believe he was simply a scapegoat, blamed for attacks he didn't commit. In times of fear and chaos, people often look for someone to blame. If crops failed, if livestock disappeared, if children went missing, someone had to pay the price. Being different made him an easy target. His quiet demeanor, his preference for solitude, these traits marked him as suspicious in a community gripped by paranoia. Mass hysteria also played a role. Fear spreads like wildfire, especially in tight-knit communities facing hardship. During periods of plague, famine, or war, people were desperate for explanations. A rumor could spiral out of control in an instant, turning a harmless neighbor into a mythical monster. Once the idea took hold, it became almost impossible to dispel. Could he have been framed? Perhaps someone used the werewolf legend to cover up crimes, even murder. In a society ruled by fear, the supernatural made the perfect disguise. By pointing fingers at him, the real culprits could slip away unnoticed. And what about the glowing eyes? Science offers a plausible explanation: retroreflection. Under certain lighting conditions, human eyes can reflect light, creating an eerie glow. Combine that with the flickering torchlight of the hunters, and it's easy to see how such a phenomenon could feed the legend. As for the howling, wolves were abundant in those forests. Their cries, distorted by the echo of the trees, could easily be mistaken for something more sinister. Add a dash of superstition, and suddenly, every sound becomes a sign of the beast. It's possible he was just a man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, a victim of ignorance, fear, and prejudice. A man whose name was erased, but whose story became immortal. Yet, despite these rational explanations, the legend persists. Why? Because myths serve a purpose. They give shape to our fears, offering a way to confront the unknown. But could all of this truly explain the legend? Or was there something more? A truth buried beneath centuries of fear and myth? What do you believe? Let us know your theories in the comments. And if you want to explore more legends and mysteries, subscribe to Ancient Chronicles. The past is full of secrets, waiting to be uncovered. Conclusion and reflection: the story of the last werewolf of Europe is a haunting reminder of the power of fear. A man was hunted, tried, and condemned not for his actions, but for what they believed he was. It's a tale of superstition, prejudice, and mass hysteria. But it's also a story about the power of myth. How legends are born, how they grow, and how they can consume the truth. Werewolves continue to haunt our imagination. From ancient folklore to modern movies, the fear of the beast within lives on. But why do we need these monsters? What do they represent? Perhaps they reflect our own fears: fear of the unknown, fear of losing control, fear of the darkness within ourselves. In the end, the monsters we create are reflections of our own minds. So, was he truly a werewolf? Or just a man cursed by fear and superstition? Was he a monster, or just another victim of a cruel and unforgiving world? We may never know the truth, but his story serves as a warning, a reminder of how easily fear can become hatred and how legends can destroy lives. Do you believe in the legend, or do you see the man behind the monster? Let us know in the comments. Your voice keeps these stories alive. If you enjoyed this tale and want to uncover more ancient mysteries, subscribe to Ancient Chronicles. There are countless stories waiting to be told if you're brave enough to listen. The past is never truly dead. Its shadows still linger, and its whispers still haunt the night. Do you hear them? The legend of the last werewolf lives on. And perhaps, so does he.